Now, the great thing about Disney CEO Bob Iger as of right now is that he's currently in a phase of desperation and damage control that's really making him do whatever is necessary to turn Star Wars into a bigger success than ever before that the fans have never really witnessed, to really bring Star Wars to a different level that would be revolutionary as far as success goes. Basically, what Bob Iger wants to do is that he wants to bring Star Wars back to the cinemas, he wants to expand the Star Wars shows, and he also wants to really kind of evolve past the Mandalorian being the centerpiece. He wants to really focus on different foundations that's going to really expand to different branches of the franchise. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing that a lot of fans have been very skeptical about has a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy's projects, The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. Now, we talked about this, that there is some kind of silver lining to this whole situation, and what Kathleen Kennedy has been doing to those projects is that John and Dave are taking over roughly 40% of each of those projects to kind of, fine-tune those series and more. But that brings us to the main subject today and how it does involve George Lucas and what he recently did and got, of course, Bob Iger to actually approve of. And there's been a lot going on behind closed doors the past, 2 weeks, give or take, about how they could regulate the Star Wars universe, how they could really expand beyond what fans' expectations really are, and all the like. So there's a lot of things at work here, a lot of different things at play, and basically that's just the very beginning of it all. So on top of all of this, what's even all the more exciting has a lot to do with what George Lucas got Bob Iger to recently approve of. Now, with John and Dave now preparing to reinvent one of their canceled Star Wars TV shows, it's noted that right now both Disney and Lucasfilm are creating an extensive plan to evolve the roadmap in the best way possible. Currently, Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, recently accepted a long list of pitches that were provided by creator George Lucas for upcoming Star Wars shows and films. Bob Iger recently greenlit a handful of projects that were gathered by Lucas, and that he is set to use all of his ideas for future shows and even films that are currently in the works as well. Now, one of which is set to be a series that will feature a young Han, Luke, and Leia that will be created through revolutionary technology provided by ILM, and that Lucas has been making calls with Harrison Ford to bring him back as Han Solo. Something that Harrison Ford is now debating and considering, since Lucas is the one who gave him the call directly himself for the series that's in the very early phase of development. Not just that, but it was Lucas's idea to expand the Old Republic content that has now been finalized and accepted by Bob Iger, and that he will be making official announcements on all of this by this fall. So I want to just, say one thing here real quick before I get to the next big piece about all of this, is that this project, we talked about this a couple of days ago, of this new series that's going to focus on Luke, Han, and Leia as the main characters through ILM's new technology. It's going to basically be a mixture of deepfake technology and de-aging tech, something that we have never seen before, something that is going to go beyond those two types of technologies, but using them combined in a very specific way. Now, I think that at the end of the day, given that George is trying to get Harrison Ford to return, is a great move, because who else would return under Disney than George Lucas? If you got a call from Lucas, that makes a lot of sense why Harrison Ford now is debating on whether or not he wants to return, as opposed to earlier when Disney was giving him the call. It was just a flat-out no, it was a complete rejection, and it stopped right there. But now that Lucas is giving the calls, Harrison is at least thinking about it. Do I think that he's going to end up coming back as Han Solo? If you guys want my honest truth on this, I don't believe so. I don't really think he's going to come back. As much as he loves Lucas and what he did for his career, I'm really not quite sure if Harrison would really step back into the set of Star Wars, because he himself even said The Rise of Skywalker was the last thing that he would ever do Star Wars related. But hey, look, never say never, right? You could always see him say yes to George. It's a possibility. I'm just saying, my feeling on this, my gut feeling, is that George is not going to really end up getting on set of this new mystery series. But moving past all of this, everything seems to be falling in place in George's favor, because Bob Iger is really trying to leave a footprint. He's trying to create his own legacy and leaving something special behind before he leaves in 2024. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Bob Iger, by the way, is trying to get out at Disney by next year. However, on top of this, alright, now, into, of course, everything related to that, he will be making official announcements on all of this by this fall, into early 2024. At this point, Iger is said to be desperate and is doing anything possible to bring Star Wars to a new level of success that will help George Lucas, of course, in his pitching of wonderful ideas to him that's going to truly inspire other creators to join both Favreau and Filoni on these upcoming projects. Iger is very excited for, of course, accepting many of George's concepts that are now entering into early development, finally, and that they are also in talks of expanding the Old Republic era content on TV as well, since they already have films in the works as of right now. So we talked about this too, about how there are indeed Old Republic movies in development that Bob Iger wants to put into the theaters. He wants to put those out into the actual cinemas, and that's basically going to be their approach to the big budget blockbuster level Star Wars films. Meanwhile, the others are going to be more of like the one-off movies, stuff around those lines. They also have that Mandalorian trilogy that we talked about. So they're creating a full slate of Star Wars films. Not quite as crowded as the Marvel movies. They don't want to get anywhere near that, but they want to at least have a very good on and off scenario. A trilogy film followed by a standalone film, and, you know, rinse and repeat. They want something like that, just like what they did before in the past, right? You had Episode 7, then you had Rogue One. You had The Last Jedi, then you had Solo. You had The Rise of Skywalker, and after that, it was supposed to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi Star Wars movie, but that got cancelled, and that became into a TV show. So, they were supposed to keep that format going. Trilogy movie, standalone, etc., etc. So, that's what they're trying to kickstart again, and I think the fact that they are really listening to George now and listening to all of his pitches, given that George now has a complete in, all thanks to John and Dave working very closely with Bob Iger, and how Bob Iger knows that the fans would watch anything that's very well respected by George Lucas and looked over very carefully. And you know what? At the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? I mean, that's what you really want to see. You want to see George Lucas material that's going to be very well created, led by very important creators. And that is really something that I think a lot of fans need to cherish, right? Now, at the end of the day, too, Bob Iger is still trying to figure out, you know, what to do with the roadmap of the franchise. We know that they're focusing more so on quality than quantity. So initially they wanted to make it Marvel-sized, now they're kind of dwindling it down a little bit, not by much, but they want to reduce it quite a bit. So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to